Hi, I'm Karen Rice and welcome to my watercolour YouTube channel. I'm going to be painting an easy watercolour flower painting of some primroses, and I'm going to be using some Brusho. And this is a step-by-step tutorial that I hope will inspire you to have a go at to experiment with watercolours. This tutorial is just to give you an idea of how to approach painting these primroses. These are going to be two sort of sketches using different techniques. I really hope you're going to enjoy these two different styles, the looseness, the way to approach a background, to create texture and to create depth in your watercolour painting as well. And if you like this tutorial, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you'll get updates of my latest videos. Let's get started. So for a full list of all the materials I'm going to be using and the photo link, please see the description. And for those of you who are on Patreon, the sketch for these little paintings here will also be available as a downloadable document. So I'm just starting off here with a little bit of green from my SCHMINCKE art box, but you could use something like Phthalo Green or Phthalo Blue with a touch of yellow. And I'm dropping in now some Cerulean. Again, you could use something like Prussian Blue or Phthalo Turquoise, anything yummy like that. And I'm using my size 10 brush and I'm working wet on dry, but dropping the colours in wet on wet. I've just sprinkled a little bit of salt in there and I'm going to see what happens. I'm painting the centres in now wet on dry using my size 6 brush, which is with the sort of a lighter yellow and a deeper yellow, so you could use lemon yellow and cadmium yellow. And I'm actually going to use some of the Brusho now. And this is lemon, a colour lemon, and it comes in a large pot or small pots, or you can put it in your own containers. And I'm just using an old brush, a dry brush, and just sort of dusting it onto the wet surface. And it creates these lovely sort of intense effects. It's such a nice sort of medium. And I've just sort of put a little bit more on there now. And I'm going to use my spritzer bottle and just spray the Brusho as well, which can be quite effective. And this is not necessarily a tutorial on Brusho, but it's just to show you a little bit about Brusho. I may do a more in-depth one later. As you can see, it's spreading there. I'm wetting this left-hand side sketch, and I'll be doing a little bit more Brusho on this side. The right side's a bit more traditional, well, more my techniques. And I've mixed up some cerulean and some pink, and I'm painting this with my size 10 brush, wet into wet. And I'm going to sprinkle some Brusho in a smaller pot. The more regular pots it comes in, I've actually pierced a little hole in the top of it, and it's like a little bit of salt, and I'm just shaking it out onto the wet surface, and you can see it creates some magical effects. I've done this with a little bit of Prussian Blue down here, and I'm spritzing it, and again using this dry brush. That means the brush is not wet, and just sprinkling the powder on top of the wet surface and just see what happens. It's so magical, it really is. I'm doing the same in the center of the primrose here as well, tapping my brush and getting the Brusho onto the wet surface. I've wet the right hand side here as well. I'm sprinkling a little bit of the violet on here, sort of dry into wet, and it just sort of dissolves. It's really yummy. It's such a really nice medium to use. It is quite messy, just a little warning, and some of the colours do dye your fingertips almost. It does come off, but just be warned, if you don't like that, do wear some gloves. And I'm just spritzing now all these colours for them to blend together. Obviously, when I'm doing this, the petals get wet as well, but I've got a little answer for that later, so watch out towards the end of this tutorial. I'm now painting in wet on dry some details on the right hand primroses using some yellows and now some shadows in between the petals, and blending with a damp brush and just building up the detail. And the dark background of the paint really brings these primroses to life. You've got this lovely dark against light, and I'm just painting some little shadow colours on the petals, wet on dry, using a very, very dilute sort of watered down pink or red with a touch of green. If you'd like to watch a more in-depth tutorial, remember, check out my Patreon membership. The link for that can be found in the top right hand corner or in the description below. And I'm just now painting again the shadows on the more sort of looser primroses here, and using the same sort of effect. You saw there some of the Brusho got on the petals, so it does reawaken it and you get more of a purple wash. And it's quite fun though, you know, you get these different sort of effects. I'm just sort of building up some of the shadows and details on these petals. So the painting has dried here, and I'm using my size 6 brush with a very sort of dark cerulean with some Payne's grey mixed with it, but you could use indigo and Prussian blue, something to create a yummy dark. And I'm just painting around the edge of the primroses now. Even though the Brusho has sort of run onto the edge there, I'm actually reverting back to my original drawing. So I've got that dark against light, so it's quite magical, so that you've got that soft green and yellow still remaining on the petals, and it's really effective. And I'm just, there's a little lump of Brusho there and I've just blended it away. I'm using Quinacridone Gold here, one of my favourite colours at the moment. But I'm painting this as well, just forming the sort of shape of the primrose, working wet on dry with these dark colours. It's so much fun painting this style when you're sketching, because you can just let go and just feel relaxed. I'm giving a little spatter as well of some warm sort of yellow with a touch of red. I'm just finding another petal here that was lost in the background Brusho, and you can still bring things back. That's the wonderful thing about watercolour. I'm developing this right hand side primroses now, just building up some darks here and there using my size 4 brush with a mixture of red and green, really diluted. So you've got this beautiful neutral colour. Remember, in watercolour, less is more, especially when you're using your sketchbooks and things. Don't get bogged down with the details. Just enjoy, that flow and the beauty of watercolour. So I'm just building up some of the darks in my background now using my size 10 brush with a mix of Cerulean and Payne's Grey. I'm glazing this on now. It's a very thin wash, but it just gives that background a little bit more sort of contrast between the petals and the background, just to really bring those flowers forward. And I'm just softening some of those petals as well with a dilute brush. I decided to put some stems in here on the left hand side. It felt a little bit like the flowers were floating. It may not necessarily be something you have to do in your painting, and I'm just building up a little bit of darks there on the left hand side. I'm removing my framing tape now to reveal a lovely white border, and it also gives me a chance to assess to see whether I need to do any more little sort of tweaks to my painting. I decided to give a little bit of spatter of some white gouache to the background to finish off. And here are the finished sketches. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, especially the use of Brusho in creating texture and really beautiful colours in the background. It's a really good way of planning and preparing for a painting, and I do just that with an exclusive tutorial that will be available on my memberships, where I combine both these techniques to produce a very loose painting of some primroses. So if you're interested in seeing this in-depth painting and others, please check out the membership, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. If you like this tutorial, as I said at the beginning, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and you'll get updates of my latest videos. Thank you so much for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.